After 40 years of independence, it is time to have a review of the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis, said Nevis's Premier Mark Brantley. Responding to a SK Newsline query on the need for constitutional reform to address a range of issues that impact the Federation, Premier Brantley acknowledged that certain matters that were taken for granted in 1983 have changed and there are now new issues that have to be considered.
We've had PAM, NRP in the federal government together. We've had Labour, NRP, then we had PLP, PAM and CCM, and now there's Labour again. And so everybody has had a chance, so to speak, on the government benches. And not even a comma in the Constitution has been changed in 40 years. So, I said to you that it is time that we did a review, and there are certain things that we must look at. The world has moved on. The world of 40 years ago is not the world today. And we now need to refine that Constitution so that it is fit for purpose. And there are certain things that we took for granted a long time ago, that those things are no longer current. That our perception of what human rights are, what human rights ought to be, that those perceptions have changed over time. We have a lot of ideas that perhaps even when I was a boy might have been alien are now, with technology and otherwise, part and parcel of our everyday life, and therefore would have to be looked at. And I think the time is now ripe, and we are prepared, definitely prepared, to be a part of that exercise in terms of looking at the Constitution, determining what needs to be reformed, and doing what is necessary.
The Premier believes, however, changing the Constitution comes with its own set of challenges, hurdles that must be addressed and resolved in order to achieve constitutional reform.
I will hasten to say, however, that the Constitution of St. Kitts and Nevis is not going to be easy to change, because those who put it together put in place some very stringent entrenchment provisions. So, some people say, for example, they want to remove Clause 113. That's a secession clause for Nevis. To get that done is virtually impossible, because you need referenda in both St. Kitts and Nevis, a referendum in St. Kitts and a separate referendum in Nevis. And each you must get 2/3. You usually can't agree on most things, so how are you going to get 2/3 of people on St. Kitts to agree? And 2/3 of people on Nevis to agree to some measures. So, some of the provisions, I think, are going to be difficult in terms of how we reform. One option might be to have a complete, I don't know what the precise language is, but repeal, and you kind of get a new constitution altogether. I think some countries have done that. But again, it would have to require careful study to determine what is the best way forward, and whether or not we can do some amendments to this one that will take us forward. But we need, I think, to do more things like privacy. Might not have been so critical years ago, because 40 years ago when this Constitution was put in place, nobody had cell phones and nobody was spying on you, and we didn't have spyware and all this thing that people do, and nobody was using computers where people are hacking your information and putting your information online and all of that. That was alien. That is now commonplace today. So should the Constitution now be guaranteeing a right to privacy, not leaving it for implication, but actually setting it out as we've set out the rights, other rights to life and liberty and that kind of thing. So I think that this is a conversation, and I look forward very much to that conversation, because I think the time is nigh.
Mark Brantley is a Member of Parliament in the National Assembly of St. Kitts and Nevis. Glenn Bart reporting for SK Newsline.